You are now listening to the No Shame Podcast with Jay and Titus. Oh, wow, and we're back. Welcome to another episode of the No Shame Podcast with Jay and Titus. Once again, thank you so much for joining us here and tuning in with us on your daily commute or workout or just hanging out at the house. We really appreciate you listening to us, and hopefully we can inspire you to do good, be true to yourself, and go out there and follow your dreams. Our credo here is passion, positivity, and purpose, none in that order. We feel all those 3 P's are integral in having a happy, healthy life, relationship, business, etc., you name it. So, with that said, if you guys have an idea or a dream or something you want to get out there and you need help with it, go to No Shame Media and schedule a 30-minute consultation call with Titus and I. We have our own digital marketing agency, and we'd like to help you follow your dreams, achieve more freedom, get that business or idea started. All great things have to start, right? So you have to start. So you feel like that, go book your 30-minute free strategy session. We're here in 2018 to help 500 people get to where they want to be, because we're trying to get to where we want to be, and we want to bring people with us. So if you feel you got that in you and you want to get out the rat race, start something fantastic, book a call, 30 minutes, and we'll get you ready and willing to do it. All right. With that said, we're going to get started with the episode today. Today's episode is quite somber, quite quiet.
Melancholy.
Melancholy. It's a great word for sure. We want to start this episode by saying in everyone's life, everything's so busy. We have a lot of things going on in our lives, kids, if you're parents, relationships, business, if you're an entrepreneur, work, if you have a 9-to-5, it could be anything that's so noisy in your life right now. Noisy being busy, noisy being distracted. There's a lot of things going on in the world today as well, externally. But this episode, we want to focus on the silence. We're proponents of meditation. We're proponents of finding the inner peace. And today we want to debunk the myth, per se, that, silence has no answers. But in reality, in fact, silence is not empty. It is full of answers. So, to start off, some things happen, life happens, and sometimes you're just overwhelmed. And for me personally, when that happens to me, I just sit, meditate, and the answers come in my silence.
Right.
And try it out, try it for yourself. I mean, it works. A lot of people meditate. After all the noise in your head dissipates after a while, you kind of get this sense of calmness, serenity, and things just start appearing. You start thinking about one specific thing, focusing on that one problem, and magically it just appears. Right? There's a lot of entrepreneurs and successful people out there that have this type of practice. It doesn't have to be sitting and meditating. It could be, getting into flow state, or, figuring it out, going down the slopes at 30 miles per hour with the epiphany. That's going silent and empty in the moment as well. Titus, what do you do, man, to figure out the answers in silence?
Well, personally, from a former crazy chatterbox, finding silence is relatively new. But it goes along with the meditation practice, and it's such a key element in essentially everything that has evolved in this transition. And I find to get out of my head that internal dialogue, that voice of questioning or trying to solve any issues or challenges that I may have is you need to empty out the mind first. And it's sort of a paradox, really, right? Because you're being quiet to solve problems, or if you do go in with that intention. But it it normally takes about 25 minutes, 20 to 25 minutes of quiet. Now, if you can have more, great. Like if you can go for a float session, you jump in the tank and you have 60 and 90 minutes, whatever it may be, that's where the real magic happens. And that's in my head and in my perspective, that's true silence. I mean, that's really like the only place on earth that you can really get ultimate quiet. But the world we live in, uh, there's noise. And personally, just going for a walk in the woods, going to the beach, silence doesn't necessarily mean auditorily quiet outside, just giving yourself time and giving yourself a moment to reflect, align yourself with who you are, your authentic you, and really, really think, or not think at all, and just be, grateful. I mean, it seems to be that in silence we can discover more of who we are and turn out a lot of those external pressures, whether it's the boss or the limitless amount of friends or the kids or uh, the social pressures of life or social media or anything. Uh, it's truly important to just take a step back, breathe into whatever you're going through, and uh, know that everything is going to be okay. Right, Jay?
Oh yeah, everything is gonna be okay. This too shall pass. Like we always say, nothing lasts forever. It's impermanent. So whatever time you're going through shall pass as well. And I'd like to point out one of the things that Titus said about going into nature. You know, how many of you have felt that when you go on a hike or go on go into on the beach or somewhere just magnificently quiet, you kind of feel this overwhelming calmness, specifically when you're in nature. I get that all the time when I go hiking and I'm in the redwoods and I look up and I see these humongous trees, and it's just the sound of the forest. You know, it evokes this sense of serenity in your heart, and you feel one with everything around you. Finding the emptiness, finding the silence in that aspect helps you, to find out who you really are, to find out, deep down inside what authenticity do you feel for yourself, outside of the chatter, like Titus said, because a lot of the times, this mind here is filled with or operated by our ego, and that's a lot of noise in the head, in the heart, and it's hard for
Oh
people
yeah,
to,
it is.
yeah, it's hard for people to let go. It's like a person controlling our true self inside, and if you don't find the time to really, take time for yourself to look inside and feel that inner peace and feel the gratitude and feel the calmness, to really understand what's going on in your life, what you really want to do in life, then you're just going to be controlled for the rest of your life. And then at the end, you're going to say, man, what the heck happened to me? Because I think it's inevitable that there comes a point where you will force to be, silent, especially in those, you know, life-threatening situations, right? I mean, I don't want to be
Mm.
negative, but when you get to that near-death situation, a lot of people say they experience this unwavering silence where the light flashes, in their mind or in their before their eyes, and they understand fully at that point. But we don't have to do it. We don't have to wait to that point, right? We can do it every day. Practice every single day, and that's what's gonna make you better.
Yeah, and I mean, silence can also be like moving meditation, right? Like you mentioned about the skiing earlier, but like riding a bike or like hiking, your primary focus is singular and you're in a repetitive motion. Like I dove into a little bit of Taoism a while back, and there's this gentleman, I think his name is Stuart Wilde, um, but he was a Englishman who gave up multiple successful businesses and took this road of Taoism. And every day in the morning, he would wake up at 4 a.m. and walk in the woods for 2 hours, rain or shine. And that was sort of him coming in, excuse me, coming in tune with his own personal inner peace. And it was along with his religious practice or philosophical practice, if you will. But that can be a part of it. No matter what metropolitan city you live in, or even if you live in the country, we can always take time to be a part of nature or do these repetitive motions. Like, you know, Tim Ferriss always says, 80% of the people that he interviews have some sort of meditative practice, whether it's in the gym or, sitting on a fluffy blanket with some geometric symbols.
Yeah.
So I like the silence piece is key because we live in a world full of distractions and nobody's ever fucking bored anymore because everybody has a phone,
Right.
right? Like, prior to 2006, we would get bored.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
As crazy as that sounds, like if you were born, let's say in 1999, you don't know what it's like to be bored.
Right.
You just don't.
You'd have to go out there and do something. Make yourself physically active on trying to figure something out. Because go talk to
No, but just
someone.
yeah, think about waiting in lines.
Yeah.
Like, right? Like you actually have to wait in lines and not everyone's, looking down at this glowing rectangle in their hand.
Right. Right.
So now that we have this just like, unlimited wealth of technology and information and entertainment, like finding those moments of silence. And some call it prayer, some call it meditation, some people go surf to get that, to get in quote in the zone. uh More let's say the state of ecstasy that we
Yeah.
found in the book Stealing Fire.
Yes.
It's very similar, and they're all in line with getting physical motion and emptying your head,
Mhm.
being singularly focused on whatever task is at hand, whether it's one step up the mountain or it's one more pedal of the bicycle. Uh, it's all in true search for clarity,
Oh yeah. Great word.
right?
Yes. Yes, indeed. The
I mean, I
clarity.
feel like, right, who wouldn't want a little more clarity in their life? You can say all this is woo woo and kind of out there, but on the flip side, even if you don't believe in any of this stuff, well, don't you want a little bit more clarity? I mean, the ability to discern your judgments and your reactions and your decision making, all bases on having that extra little bit of empty space in your head. And everybody gets it in their own ways. So we suggest that no matter who you are or where you are or what demographics you come from, find you time. You know, turn off the cell phone for a few hours, shut it all down, breathe, be into yourself, Feel it. Because every breath is a gift.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. See, even in silence, you know, physical silence, we have to over here in my place. I have a little one. First episode on the podcast, Sage, my newborn daughter. But I have to physically be silent because when she naps, this is when I can work. So this is the life of an entrepreneur, ladies and gentlemen. We stay home, take care of our kids. I have to find silence physically around her so she can nap. But other than that, I also find silence, in myself, like Titus says, just for that extra boost of clarity. And that's such a great point to make, because nowadays, we don't have as much clarity because we're so bombarded with all this type of information, right? We don't know what's true. The ego is telling us all these different things. We have stories behind stories. We have conditioning, and we don't even know what's real ourselves because we start telling ourselves these stories in our head based on experience, based on the past, future, whatever it may be. And I think finding the silence, going into that empty space to find that mode of clarity is very important if you want to figure out what you really want to do in life, what your purpose truly is, and how you're gonna get there. We always talk about that. Is the purpose piece, right? And I mean, once you figure that out, you're gonna be affecting the world in the most positive manner, because we are born with the gift. We are all born with something to offer this world and change it in the utmost powerful way. And if we never get to that point, because we can't find that clarity, then why are we here for? What are we doing here? We're just gonna be lost souls in the rat race, lost souls just doing what everybody else does, and that's not how to live. You got a lot to live for. You have a lot to live for. A lot of things to affect change positively. And I remember when I was meditating when I was younger with my dad. I never knew the power of clarity. I never knew the power of silence, figuring things out. It wasn't until I was older, where I went through this life transformation, and I came to a point in my life where I needed to understand why I was here for. I was just a lost person, didn't know what I was gonna do, what my goals were. I was just partying all the time, But now with this new sense of clarity and having this practice every single day, twice a day, meditating, or just sitting there in silence and thinking, like literally proactively thinking with a purpose, not thinking with distractions, but thinking with a purpose to figure out what my next steps is, or what my goals are, or simple as what should I be doing today that's going to be productive, right? So with that practice every single day, I get one step closer to going for my dreams, living the life that I want to live, having that extra clarity, affecting people around me that are in a positive manner.
Yeah, and for those of you out there with like slight cases of ADHD,
Yeah.
oh, please believe I empathize. And it's hard to shut it down. It really is. And especially if, every time you look at your inbox, there's double digits there. And then as soon as you clear it out, there's more. And then you got to go back to your text message. Then you got to drive to this meeting. Like, I understand. And it's hard to get a moment of silence. It is. It's challenging. But within the busyness and the taking steps and doing what you need to do to accomplish your goals, like rolling in a little piece of just time to really step back and observe all it is that you're having this internal dialogue about. And my internal dialogue personally never shuts up. This is a
Mine's too.
365 a day, like 24/7. It runs, 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 runs. It never stops. It is like the ultimate Iron Man athlete. It just keeps fucking going.
The Energizer Buzzy just keeps going and
Right.
going and going.
It's relentless, and then thought processes run like a whiteboard, and it shoots from all different angles. So it's even more important for those that have these type of like mental running blocks. Like whenever I ask people if they meditate and they say no, and I ask them why not, the typical answer is, well, I tried a couple times, but it's too hard.
Right,
I was in that same fucking boat.
right.
Like, you fucking kidding me? Like, I gotta sit there and be still for 10 minutes? 10
Right.
fucking minutes?
That could feel like an eternity, right? For those of
Oh, it
you
does.
who have a hard time doing it, just the thought of 10 minutes. I mean, when you look outside, 10 minutes is nothing. But when you're sitting there in silence, it could last a long time. And I think that's why people are fearful of why they think they can't do it. Because they just seem like it just seems so impossible for them.
Right, but now there's tools, you know what I
Right.
mean? There's a gazillion meditating apps. There's like Calm and Zen and Headspace, and uh I'm quite certain most of you have that thing called YouTube on your phone, and
Yeah.
it, I know we're huge proponents on it. We push the silence piece, and we push the meditation because it's good for, like, just like we say, internal clarity and being able to decipher and discern what is good and what is not, and what is useful and what you can implement into your everyday life. But there's tools, like, again, you know let's go back 11 years, 10 years, and these tools didn't exist.
Right.
Like, so grateful for all these technology that comes through. And as much of a hindrance as some of it might be, there's a lot of good coming out of this technological world as well.
Yeah. Definitely.
She's so cute, Jay.
I would totally agree.
I don't see you on YouTube, man. You gotta look at this baby,
Yeah.
man. Just oh,
Yeah.
sorry, it's awesome podcast content, but
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
say that in complete satire.
Right. Yeah, those of you on the podcast, you won't be able to see her. Just go to our YouTube channel. You can see all of our podcast content on there, and we record unedited, so it's all the video up there of all of our guests as well. So yeah, go to our No Shame podcast on YouTube and check it out. Leave us a comment, tell us what you think. But I wanted to point on that whole, silence piece and using it as a tool, and it's been such a helpful tool for me to regulate my feelings, especially when I get frustrated. I used to be an angry dude. I used to have a temper, and I'd take things real personal, like real quick. Especially when I was in relationships. It's just hard being in a relationship in itself, but dealing with the stresses of that, I think finding the silence and peace in those moments of frustration is the ultimate test and triumph for me. Because when I get to that space where I am just enraged in this negative feeling and frustration, what I do is I step back, I take a deep breath, I close my eyes, and I find that I dig deep. Sometimes I have to dig super deep to find some peace, to find some forgiveness, to find some gratitude in that specific situation for me to handle that. for my own sanity. Not just for the situation and for the other person that I'm dealing with, but for my own sanity. Because if I don't do that, I just go to this another realm or world of just negative energy. And I always tell myself, and I tell people around me, like, if you can expel that much amount of negative energy, why don't you do it positively, in a positive manner? Energy is energy, right? But why don't you just do it with positive energy? So when I get to that negative space, and you know my internal chatter is going, my emotional negative feelings are rising, it's a great tool to fall back on and say, okay, look, what am I supposed to do in this situation? How is this gonna make me feel good after this? So I take a step back, close my eyes, take 3 deep breaths, you know go into the moment of silence in that situation, and then the clarity hits, and then you understand what you're feeling. You get a more mindful way of dealing with the situation rather than irrationally reacting, or reacting from impulse, right? You're actually thinking, really thinking about what you can do to change this situation around. And I think if everyone can do that in just the smallest scale, we'd have less conflicts, we'd have less wars, we have less fighting. I'm not saying to control your anger to the utmost point as like a Zen master, but know your levels and know your feelings to where you won't go to that extra step where you're just firing off things that you don't mean, or reacting in a way where that can hurt someone. We did a podcast in the back that said, to live a happier life, don't hurt anyone. I mean, that goes with yourself too, right? So I think this silence piece is really critical to understanding that, because it can help you in so many aspects of your life. Not just the clarity part, which is very important, but also with handling your emotions. If you're, you have a temper, handling other situations that are stressful. Even in stressful situations, I remember at work sometimes when I used to work, to get away from the stress, I'd go outside and take a deep breath, just to calm myself, and then go back in and say, okay, I've, collected
Shit,
myself.
Jay, you know what most of us call that? We call
What?
that a fucking smoke break.
Yeah. Yeah, when we used to
I
smoke
always felt
cigarettes.
bad for the
Yeah.
people that didn't smoke.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I used to smoke cigarettes,
Right.
so it's been like maybe a year and a half.
Yeah. Yeah.
I felt bad for the people that didn't smoke cigarettes because I got two 15-minute breaks that I would go outside and
Right.
smoke cigarettes. Other guys had to sit inside.
Right. Yeah, and ironically, when I used to smoke cigarettes too, and ironically, smoking cigarettes actually made you less stressed. It's scientific proof, right? It was just crazy because that hand and to mouth motion or whatever you get the feeling from nicotine, it kind of calms you down, right? And yeah, I was thankful for that too, man, because there's some days I just could not handle the situation, and I couldn't wait until you know, the time hit, 15 or something like that. I was like, all right, I'm out. I don't want to deal with this right now. I'm just gonna smoke my stove real quick, feel good, come back, have a clearer head, and then go on with it, right? But now it's totally different, of course. I don't smoke anymore or anything like that. Like if it is stressful, like I said, I just follow those steps to help me through that situation. Yeah.
Maybe that's why smokers are calmer because you think about it, man, you're taking really deep breaths through a cigarette
Right.
the- for
Right.
like 5 minutes.
Right. 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 Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
scientifically, I'm sure a little bit of the nicotine has to do with it, has something to do with it. But the simple fact of you got to go outside, you got to go 20 feet away from any door,
Mhm.
and there's also like the social aspect to it.
Mhm.
That's why it's so hard for people to quit smoking cigarettes.
Mhm.
And for those of you working on your New Year's resolution of not smoking, good on you. And if you
Yeah.
messed up, it's okay. You
It,
can get back on.
yeah. Yeah. Exactly. To take it from two people who have, smoked a lot in their lifetime and quit.
Oh, I was
And
2 packs a day,
yeah,
man.
same here. I was same here, bro. And the first time I quit, it wasn't cold turkey. It was like a gradual quit. And I mean, and I'm gonna tell you the truth. Even now, sometimes when I smell it, there are times. I mean, it's rare, but there are
Oh,
times
it
where,
smells delicious
yeah, it's like,
sometimes. Yeah.
I just want to take a hit, or I just want to, I mean, it's, if you've been smoking for that long, you know what I'm talking about. You get that feeling, and you just
Oh
want to take
yeah.
one more hit and see how it feels or whatever. Especially when you're drinking, you know. But
Man, that's the best time.
yeah, that is the best time. But
Like
yeah,
2 decades of smoking cigarettes, but it's a nasty habit, and you smell like ashtrays. Now that you're done with cigarettes, when you walk into an elevator and somebody just had a cigarette, you know it's that guy, and it's like, wow, I never used to smell that.
right, right,
Right?
exactly.
It's crazy that your olfactories die
Mm-hmm.
to the smell of tobacco cigarettes.
Right, right. Yeah. So I mean, that could help you in your quitting phase. If you use smoking as a escape, why don't you use finding inner peace and silence as an escape? And it's healthier. It's a healthier alternative to smoking. But we're not talking bad about people out there. We've been there. We've done that. And like Titus said, if you're on your New Year's resolutions, I'm gonna pull more power to you. It's hard. Kudos to you for just trying and thinking about,
Keep going.
yeah, keep going and thinking about you know what you want to do. Become helpful. Even Sage says that, huh? Sage, tell him. Yeah.
Say just like quit fucking smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
And here I am hitting the vape, and I can't say anything. Which one is better? Which one is worse? Who knows?
Right. Right. Well, yeah. So we're gonna wrap it up here, and we just want everyone in the audience to really think about what it is to find silence and how it's gonna affect you in a positive manner, because we've named so many different reasons why it's good for you and why answers come from silence, not just more stress, as people might think. Get that out of your mindset. Don't
Maybe,
think that it's hard.
Jay, I think it's also you stress, right? Like it's
Right.
good stress when you're in silence.
Right. Yeah. Good point.
There's distress and you stress. So not only does it help calm the distress down, but you get to really think about your challenges and your issues and your problems in a positive way after you filter through all the junk,
Yes.
right? It takes some
Definitely.
time.
Yeah. Go
Take
take
some time.
Yeah. Go take 2 minutes to start off. Just 2 minutes, 2 to 5 minutes, and just sit there. You don't have to close your eyes. Just sit there in silence and just think about whatever you want to think about. And not talk, or just sit there in the park or whatever, and just be in the moment for that 2 to 5 minutes. And see how you feel. Log it down, write it in your journal. Um, you know, take notes about how you physically feel, how you mentally feel, spiritually feel, and then go from there. That's a good starting point, I think.
Mm.
Or if you want, Headspace is a good app. Like Titus said, there's a whole bunch of them out there. YouTube, find a meditation channel, or whatever, mindfulness channel. There's a whole bunch of them, so there's no excuse. Just try it out for 2 to 5 minutes and see how you feel. Because, yeah, it's great for you. Like Sage says, it's great for you.
Mm.
So with that said, like I want to remind everybody, thanks for joining us here at the No Shame Podcast. Sage's debut on the podcast. But if you have something you want to, work on or dream, let us know at the NoShameMedia.com. Schedule a 30-minute call and let's have a chat. Other than that, thanks for joining us. No Shame Podcast. Aloha.
Thanks, no shamers. Aloha.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the No Shame Podcast. We really appreciate you for doing that. Please like, subscribe, and follow all of our social media handles and rate us on iTunes. It would really help us a lot. And we promise to keep bringing you valuable content. Thanks again, and aloha.